I once ate a grape at the supermarket without paying for it.
I have illegally downloaded a couple of movies. I just really wanted to watch Frozen.
I once drove around the block naked as a deer. Is that illegal?
I've committed some fashion crimes, like socks and sandals.
I'm not saying anything else until I speak to my lawyer.
We all have a bit of an idea about what's illegal, but what does the law actually say when it comes to drugs?
The law. It's an excuse for old people to put their curly wigs on and bang their big wooden hammers. But what does the law say about drugs?
Just because something is legal in Canada doesn't mean that it applies here. Hey, don't you know? Oh my God, it's a moose smoking a joint. It's my Canadian accent. Next one.
So, what laws apply here in the land of the long white cloud when it comes to smoking the long white clouds?
Taking illicit drugs is illegal in New Zealand. It's also unlawful to buy alcohol if you're aged under 18.
Now, there is a referendum coming up for cannabis. Some medical cannabis products can be legal if prescribed by a doctor.
Speaking of doctors, it's also illegal to take prescription medications that weren't prescribed for you.
Or to give your prescription medication to someone else.
Just because you can grow a beard and you're 15 years old doesn't mean you can buy alcohol before you're 18. I am pretty jealous of that beard though.
Well, you can have alcohol if you're under 18, if your parents let you, but you just can't buy it.
These laws aren't designed to spoil your fun, but they are there to protect you from substances that could be harmful.
Even though it's illegal, some people still choose to take drugs and drink before they're 18.
When it came to alcohol, when I was 14, I got so badly drunk on rocket fuel, which is just a mixture of all the different alcohols together at a party. 14, wasted, had to be taken home. I just remember kind of being taken home by some friends. And I think from then my body has had this reaction whenever alcohol's near, so I can manage maybe 2 glasses of wine and then I'm wasted. And in terms of drugs, no, I can thankfully say I've never had a problem with it, but I can see why they're so addictive.
I had a friend that got taken to the police station and they'd only had 2 beers and they were driving home after 2 beers. So they thought they were under the limit. But when they got breath tested, it showed they were just over it. So if you've had just even one thing to drink, just don't drive at all. If you know you're drinking, you just don't drive.
It's pretty scary when you hear about someone you know getting arrested for the same thing you did. Like, wow, that could have been me.
If you're considering getting involved with illegal drugs, you need to be aware that you are committing a crime and be aware of what the repercussions could be if you were caught by the police.
Trust me, getting arrested is not fun. Are these really the only props we had? Who used these last?
If you get caught with drugs, the penalty will depend on what kind of drugs they are.
And what you were doing with them.
In the case of illegal drugs, there are 3 classes, class A, B, and C.
Let's just say you want to be getting A's in class, not getting into class A's.
So what's the difference between the different classes?
Class A drugs are the most dangerous, which come with the harshest penalties.
The A could stand for a frickin' long time in jail.
A thanks, but there'll be a no thanks.
So you'd probably expect that Class A drugs include things like meth, heroin, cocaine, but you might be surprised to know that they include trippy drugs like magic mushrooms and LSD or acid.
And Class B drugs are the next tier down. I mean, the B could stand for be careful.
Don't be doing these drugs.
To be or not to be is the only Shakespeare I know. So.
Class B drugs include ecstasy, cannabis oil, morphine, and some drugs that sound like an old-time poet took them. Like opium and hashish.
Class C are the lower tier of illegal drugs. It could stand for C, I told you these drugs were illegal.
I'm feeling seasick.
Class C, not so classy.
Class C drugs include cannabis seed, cannabis plant, and codeine, which gives you constipation. Also begins with C. You are welcome.
Synthetics come under unapproved products, which have their own penalties.
There are also laws around prescription medicine, and no, we're not talking about Panadol.
Don't share your prescription drugs with anyone. It's illegal and they could get hurt.
There are different penalties for different kinds of involvement with drugs.
There's use, which includes smoking, inhaling, injecting, or swallowing a drug.
I'm definitely guilty for the use of hot chips on a regular basis.
Then there's possession, which isn't like demonic possession. I don't have it or anything.
Possession means you have custody of or control over a drug. For example, in your house, in your pocket, or in your car.
Possession also means you must be aware that the drug is in your house, your pocket, your car, and you meant for it to be there.
Hey, I could be done for possession of having way too many pairs of kicks. Don't worry, I'm in recovery though.
Cultivation is any activities related to growing narcotic plants, like cannabis.
What? These are just tomato plants, bro. I'm just really suck at gardening.
If you are caught cultivating a dealable quantity and you intend to sell even a small amount, charges of possession for supply could be laid.
And there's also trafficking, which is the most serious offence. Personally, I hate anything to do with traffic.
Trafficking, or drug dealing, includes importing, manufacturing, producing, distributing, or selling an illegal drug.
Let's take a quick look at the penalties that apply to drug offences.
They're a bit worse than getting a detention or being sent to bed without pudding, and that sucks.
The penalties for drug offences are prison time and or fines. The higher the class, the longer time in prison.
Possession of a Class B or C drug could mean 3 months in prison, and possession of a Class A drug could land you in prison for 6 months.
And think about everything you would miss out on if you spent 6 months in prison. It's not like Orange is the New Black.
The penalties for manufacturing or selling are much higher. You could be risking decades in prison.
Make sure you're aware of these penalties. They are serious. Taking drugs might seem to get you into the cool gang, but you could wind up in jail, and you cannot post Instagrams from there.
There are also penalties for underage drinking. Did you know that if you or your parents give alcohol to a mate who's under 18, you can be fined up to $2,000?
If you drink and drive, you could lose your licence or end up in prison.
And you could hurt someone. Not to be a buzzkill, but imagine how you'd feel if you killed your mate.
Convictions can have a negative impact on your life, including making it hard to get a job.
As an adult, whenever I find myself applying to anything and they ask me if I have a criminal conviction, let's just say it makes things a lot easier if you're able to tick no.
I have got some friends that have convictions, and it's obviously harder for them because some of them are quite talented and they have specific jobs that they want, but they're just residing to having to get these jobs where they're going to have to be stuck there for the rest of their life because of the conviction.
Criminal conviction can also give you problems when trying to travel to other countries. So don't let going on a trip stop you from going on a trip.
It's important to know your rights under the law if you're dealing with the police.
Police are allowed to search you or your property if you let them.
If they arrest you,
If they have a search warrant,
Or they have reasonable grounds for believing you have drugs.
Reasonable grounds are things like smelling or seeing drugs on you, seeing you use drugs, or seeing you behave as if you're stoned.
if police see or smell drugs on you, they're entitled to search your car. And I don't know about you, but I don't want them seeing my Hilary Duff CD still in there. On repeat.
Any driver can be breath tested for alcohol.
A positive breath test can lead to losing your licence, getting demerit points, or worse.
lucky they don't breath test for morning breath, eh? Like it's pretty bad.
If you fail a police sobriety test, you can be detained to have a blood sample taken. It's illegal to drive while impaired by drugs. If you drive while stoned, you're likely to lose your licence.
If you are arrested, the police will read you your rights. You've probably seen them do this on TV.
You have the right to remain silent.
I definitely have some friends called Guy Williams who I wish would exercise this right.
The right to remain silent includes any written statements. So apart from giving your name, address, and date of birth, you can exercise this right.
You have the right to speak to a free lawyer.
Lawyers spend heaps of years at uni, stacking up giant student loans so they know the law inside and out. Like, take their advice. It's free.
I haven't had any personal experiences being arrested, I have seen other people get arrested. It's not fun, and it's kind of just really ugly, to be honest. And I feel like everyone I know who has talked about knowing people who have been arrested, they talk about it being a really horrible time.
We're not saying you should take drugs, but if you do, here's some things you should keep in mind.
Don't travel around with stuff on you.
Taking drugs in public is just asking to get caught. If you think no one knows what drugs smell like, everybody knows what drugs smell like.
And just because you've made a secret circle with your friends while you're taking drugs, it doesn't mean that you're invisible. It's like pretty obvious what you're doing.
The best way to not be caught with drugs is to not have any drugs. But if you do, make sure to possess as little as possible.
Drugs are not like toilet paper. It's not a good idea to buy in bulk.
Possessing more than a predetermined amount of a particular drug can mean that the law assumes that you're a drug dealer. The amount varies according to the type of drug that you've got.
Dealing drugs shouldn't be something you consider as a positive career move.
And there's much more better ways of making money. Mow the lawns, babysit, drive your parents mad, becoming a professional gamer.
You don't think any police will be watching this, eh? Because all of those stories about drugs and stuff, I was just joking. And do you guys have a lawyer for me? Or is that, I'm okay.